Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, all you Road to Growth listeners. Today I have Kyle Cox. You're the founder, owner of Blindster, correct?
Yes, and happy to be here.
So one thing, we've had a little back and forth trying to get you on here. So yes, we made it happen. I think this is, you were in Texas with everything kind of going on. Well, if everyone listening knows, it's been really tough in Texas over the last couple of weeks, huh?
It has. We were like everybody else. We were without power for 3 days, and it was, in the teens, the low teens for a couple days. All of our plants in our yard died. And we had one pipe burst. It was pretty minor. It was above our closet, but a lot of people had a lot more severe damage and stuff. So it was freezing. We were bundled up. I'm married. I have 3 kids, and we were all in our ski gear, Colorado ski gear, and 3 or 4 blankets trying to keep warm. It was actually inside my house. It was 39 degrees.
Oh, wow.
For a day or two, for a day and a half, 2 days. So yeah, it makes you appreciate the little things, electricity. Who would have thought in the 4th largest city that we'd lose power for 3 days. So pretty crazy. And water too. We lost water too. So.
When you don't have those things, sometimes you forget about them or you become spoiled by them. Like I live in San Diego, and when it rains, and it just rained a couple days ago, everyone freaks out because we barely ever get rain, and because we're not used to it. But then you talk to someone back east that has the snow, and they're like, what are you talking about? I have to basically clean off my car today because there's ice all over it. We got black ice, got this. And I'm like, yeah. You have to remember how lucky we have it.
Yeah, that's true. We're just not used to the snow down here. It's crazy. I've lived here for 35 years, and then, it's like a novel thing. It's like a little bit of dust, and the kids might go outside and be able to make a snowball or something, but it just doesn't snow in Houston. When they were talking about the storm, a week ahead of time, we're like, yeah, whatever. We're going to get 4 inches of snow. It's going to be, in the single digits, but it happened. So, but we weren't prepared, obviously. So, but our business was able to, we did shut down. We had to shut down the business I say shut down. We're an e-commerce company, so that's the beauty. We didn't have to shut down, but we're still open 24/7. But our customer service and sales, which is a big part of our business, answering email and phone calls and chat, we were real limited because only a few people had power, very few. So we actually kind of shut down everything but chat. The people that could get on chat, and because if we turned on the phones, the 1 or 2 people that were on the phones would have been overwhelmed. So we made it through.
Have you ever thought about outsourcing outside of the United States?
We have. Not seriously, because we sell a product that we're very unlike Amazon in that we sell a product that takes not a lot, but definitely far above average of contact with your customers, because we sell custom window coverings. And so the nice thing about it is we don't compete with Amazon. They do sell a few, but they're through resellers, and that's just not Amazon's business. They don't sell products that require hand holding. And, I don't think I've called I get something on my doorstep every day from Amazon. It's like Christmas. I forget what I ordered, but I don't think I've ever called Amazon once. I might've emailed them or something, but yeah, we deal with, measuring and installing, and people might have questions. We try to, do as much as we can on the website, but yeah, we end up, we've got, about 15 customer service and sales people, and we take about 10% of our orders over the phone. And we talk to a lot of customers that end up ordering themselves. They just have questions or whatever. So yeah, but outsourcing it, one of our competitors tried it, and it was a huge failure. I knew that it would be, number one, just from, I want the people that talk, they're our contact, they're Blindster to our customers. So and it's so important, customer retention, customer, repeat business and referral business. I always say we don't, we're not profitable on the first sale. We're profitable on the second, third, and fourth. And then, their referrals to people. The best form of advertising you could ever have is a referral. And so we try to do everything in our power to make them happy. And when you've got a third party doing it, are they going to have that are they going to see the big picture? Are they going to, they're just order takers, and plus the training them would be very, very difficult remotely, very difficult.
So you might save a little money up front on the
Right.
first sale, but the 2, 3, 4, the later ones, you might not get the repeat business.
We wouldn't, and that is the key to any business, I think, is repeat and referral business. If you're just looking for that one sale, that's a really not a big picture point of view. And you see that with large companies that, when they started out, they really cared about customer service and they were all about that. But then when they get big, they kind of forget about it. And if you go public, I always say, or I've said before, I've probably spent no telling how many tens of thousands, if not six figures, on AT&T over the last 25 years for cell services or whatever. And I can't get a $10 credit on my bill for something. They have to go to a supervisor. Isn't that? I mean, that's a big company for you, whereas we can make the decision right away. If we need to give the customer the order for free or give them a discount or do what's right. We always tell my people, if you were in that person's shoes, what would you want them to do? And we do that and even try to go beyond that because we want them to have such a good experience with us that they're just tell everybody about it. It wasn't just a normal experience. And that's what we do with upset customers. If they're upset, we try to, the best advocate you could ever have is an upset customer that you're able to turn into a happy customer. And then, and maybe it's by giving them the order free. Certainly if it was our fault or something, just give it to them for free. They'll be like, wow, you guys are amazing. And what'll they do then? They'll tell everybody about it. And there's no better form of advertising. There's none there. You can't pay for advertising like that. The different levels, you got repeat referral. That's the best. And then you got, if you did another form of advertising, maybe like I do a lot of advertising and I talk about it. So maybe the owner talking about it, and then you have regular advertising, which is expensive and it's not personal. And so, but the best form of advertising, and it's priceless, is the repeat and referral business, the referral business. I mean, when you're looking for something, don't you ask your friend? One of the first things you do is you ask your friend, do you know anybody that does this? Or do you know anybody that does this? And, so that's what I do.
And if you're listening right now and you've had a bad experience with someone, anyone, or product, whatever it might be, give that company the chance to earn your business instead of just saying, I need to walk away from this company. I think that's one of the toughest things right there. They can't fix a problem that they don't know they have.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And it's interesting because we'll have, and this is very rare, but we'll have the most aggravated customers. And it's kind of, that are just, you guys done another, and then we'll go, sir, we'll just kill them with kindness and say, and this isn't all the time, but it's like, okay, if we don't ever have a chance to get that customer back, they're far gone and we don't want them back, then we'll be like, okay. But if we think there's a chance to get them back, we just kill them with kindness. And it's funny, you'll hear somebody send this just angry email, just horrible email. And of course, people in email can be a lot, be an alter ego, right? And just be a total, whatever, and then be totally different. But if you talk to them on the phone, they're not going to talk to you like that, right? Or a text is the same way. So, but anyway, we'll come back to them and say, you know what, sir, your business is important to us, and we did drop the ball here. And even if we didn't, and we're going to give you your order for free, and just to see what they say. Oh, wow, you guys are amazing. So they go from being, a lot of times that happens. And again, that's what we try to do. It's too important. It's seeing the big picture of but you're back to your point, give the company, because you never know if you just complain and say, I'm going to write bad reviews about you to everybody, give them a chance to do right. And I think most, especially small business owners, are going to do that. If they're not, they're not going to be around long.
Exactly. I mean, well, let's get into your story. The thing that got me really excited about hearing you on here was you building a brand, got it big enough to sell to Home Depot, to sell to a big company, and not just any brand. Maybe it's blinds, basic coverings, and like when I think of that, I'm like, well, coverings have already been around. There's someone already doing that, right? So there's people probably listening. I need a new idea, a new way of doing things. But you
And it,
came with this idea that seems like it's been around, yet built it up to such a big company that you're able to sell it off because it's so desirable.
well, it's funny because people ask me all the time about that knew I had an a company that I sold and started another one that I currently own, Blindster. But they'll say, I'd like to have an internet business. What should I do? How do I do it? And I was like, well, it starts with an idea, kind of like any other business that you start. If you have something that you can be unique with, and I always say, don't just copycat. If you can do something better, if you have a unique product or unique something, you need to be unique or provide a better service than's out there. But what I did, how I got into it is out of college, I went to work for Black & Decker, great company in sales and marketing, was able to get promoted 4 times in 5 years. I started in Houston, went to Albuquerque, went to Tampa, got back to Houston. This was actually about 4.5 years. And I'm from Houston. My wife is too. And I got back here and I was like, I got promoted to Chicago. But at the same time, this was 98, 99, and the internet was exploding. It was before the bubble, not long before the bubble. And every day I'd have a different idea. What if I do this? What if I do that? And I would buy domains with my different ideas. And, just so happened that when we moved into our new home, my wife and I here in Houston, we needed blinds. Like, it's a new home. It's, never had blinds in it. So we did what a lot of people do and called a professional to come and measure. And it was real expensive. I think we had like 10 windows. This was 20 years ago. It was 10 like forward blinds, and they were like, I think I still have the receipt somewhere. It was like not almost $1,000. And so, and I was, I was another thing is, I would not have, so many things in my life have fallen into place. Just when we moved to Houston, we moved into a brand new neighborhood, and they were one of the first neighborhoods in Houston, if not the first, to wire for broadband. So when we were in Florida, my wife and I, we'd play around on the internet. AOL was cool, but it was the old dial-up, and it was, I'm impatient anyway, so it was a novelty. But then when I get here and I plug into broadband, I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. And so then the light bulb went off, and I've always been kind of like, my dad was an entrepreneur, and I've always thought about, what I could do anyway. Luckily my wife didn't want to cover 3 windows that faced west, and we had an argument about it, and they were floor to ceiling windows. And I said, okay, whatever, don't put blinds on them. And she wanted to do these panel curtains. So she did them, she made them. Well, about a year later, I said, you know what? I was right. It's freaking hot in here. And she goes, okay, order blinds. But I didn't go back to that guy that I originally ordered them from.
Let me jump in there for 1 second.
Okay.
When you basically told your wife that you were right, how well did that go over?
My wife's great. She was like, actually, no, I'm sure she, now that she's happy, she went along with it. But yeah, I doubt that's what she said, actually. So I'm probably misremembering that. But luckily I got my way. Right. And so anyway, I ordered 3 blinds from an internet business that was horrible. The site, selling blinds online are really, custom blinds are very difficult. It's not just something off the shelf. There's no SKUs. If you were to SKUitize every product, there'd be tens of hundreds of millions, because all the different sizes, the colors, the options. So, basically what people had at the time, the few people that were selling online had like a price grid, and you had to calculate your own price and call. They didn't have like where you could add it to a cart and check out and any of that. And plus the gateways for credit cards were just in their infancy too. So anyway, I ordered them, and I got them, and I go, wow, I was still working for Black & Decker. I go, all this guy did was because I saw it had a manufacturer's label on it where it shipped from. I was like, wow, it was drop shipped, and this guy did nothing but sit in his at home, and he took the money and then ordered it. So I was like, wow, what a cool. So I ripped the label off. I mean, probably a couple of weeks went by, and I said, I'm going to call this company. So I called them. Lo and behold, their rep was in town that day. He sent his rep. He came over like the next day, sat at our. I didn't know anything about window coverings, so he basically told me about the business and tried to shorten it up a little bit. My wife and I went to. So I said, well, I got to learn the business. So since we were in a new neighborhood, we went and put flyers on people's doors and ended up getting about 5 or 6 homes done, and I still didn't know what I was doing. I found out later I was installing the brackets upside down on everybody's windows, so I really didn't know what I was doing. But then I said, okay, I'm ready. So I took $3,000 and had a guy out of Cleveland build me a website, and it was the first one I actually, using JavaScript, had it. You put in a price, it calculates it, you add it to a cart, and you check out. The funny thing about that is we didn't have a gateway. They were too expensive to charge the cards. So we would get an email with the credit card number, and my mom would sit and enter them into a terminal over on the side. And we get so backed up, we'd have like stacks of invoices. Like, Mom, you got to start charging the cards, because we'd get them, and we didn't even have a database. So we were using Outlook as our database. If somebody'd call with an order, we'd look up their order on Outlook. And of course we'd we'd fax the orders back then. It's crazy, showing how old I am. But anyway, yeah, got into it, and we took off. I mean, I really didn't spend any money on advertising. I did some eBay traffic, but we just took off, and we did, I mean, we were $500,000 our first 6 months. So, I mean, it was crazy with no advertising because there was demand out there and nobody was out there doing it. So we were the first. And we just grew, like crazy for that. And I was 30, and I did sell my business to Home Depot. What ultimately was Home Depot. Home Depot owns it now, and they bought several of us websites. I mean, I'm not going to mention my competitor. I compete against my old company now, but we're substantially larger than they are, so that's a good thing. But yeah.
What, like, when you're building that company out, right? It seemed like $500,000 in your first month of doing
first 6 months.
Oh, for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, still, it seems like it was a breeze. Was there any kind of hurdles that you had to kind of work through, or things that you're just like, oh my gosh, building a company is maybe not as easy as 6 months, or was it pretty much that way?
Well, it took off, and then I was excited, and the growing pains were I still had my old job. So I would sit at, I would be on because I was afraid to leave it. So I had, I'd do my sales job at Black & Decker. And then if my phone rang, I had 2 different business cards, one for, for my company, for my e-commerce business, and then one for Black & Decker. And so I ended up answering the phone. I was customer service. I was everything. I did everything. And my mother wasn't till actually a few months later. My father passed away, so she was a nurse, and she came to work for me because I couldn't handle it anymore. But yeah, it was the growing pains. And then we went and got a little bitty office. I eventually ran out of family to hire, but I hired my mom, then I hired my sister-in-law, and then I hired my brother. And then I ended up hiring my aunt, my uncle, my niece, my cousin, two cousins, actually. I have great family. They say don't work with, I mean, mine's amazing. They were the best employees that, I've had, and I still have family working for me in the business I have now. But yeah, just the growth, keeping up with the growth. And then we had competitors come in and knock us off. And, but we had just amazing growth, but looking back, I wouldn't have sold it. I mean, to have the growth I had, but I don't have any regrets. I wouldn't be here and have started a new company that's more successful, but to sell it when I did and skyrocketing, we had doubled the business from, from 03. We'd pretty much doubled the business every year. And then to sell it, in hindsight, probably wasn't the most astute business move, but it was a lot of money. And so I took it, and then learned during my non-compete over the next 5 years, I learned you don't ever want to invest in a restaurant. No offense to anybody that has restaurants. It wasn't for me. And then I had a retail business too that I grew their internet, but this was during the recession. It was a lighting business, a retail lighting business, and it didn't do well either. So that's when I came back and started the company I have now, Blindster, because I know what I know and I know what I don't know. I know what I'm good at, know what I'm not good at, and I know this business. So came back to what I knew, and I had a whole new set of struggles with this business, and it was a lot harder the second time around.
Oh, a lot harder the second. Usually I hear that you learn from your mistakes on the first time, and now the second time.
No, this was much harder, much harder. So the second time.
Well, okay, we're going to jump into that. What was the difference? The question, when did you know that it was the right time to leave your job? Because it seems like that was like a lifeline right there.
Yeah.
When did you know that was the time?
Well, I guess I'm always, I think anybody that's an entrepreneur, you have to be a risk taker and willing to, because there's no reward without risk. I'm sure everybody's heard that. And so it's a calculated risk, but I know that I had people, including my uncle, who was a business advisor. He had his own business too. He thought I quit too early, but I was just, he's like, don't you want to, make sure you grow it? And I was like, no, I said, I need to, but this is the funny thing is ended up, was I making enough? I quit about 2 months in. I finally just said, I got to do it. Was I making enough money at that point to match my income at Black & Decker? Probably not, but I knew we were going to get there. And then, but I got scared, and I was having recruiters call me about my Black & Decker, that type of position. And I actually took a job with another company in the industry, Schleglock. Hope nobody from there is listening, but I took it because they had a signing bonus, but it was nice. And then I worked for them for about a month, and then I quit again, but I felt bad. So I actually never filed an expense report, which was probably about $5,000. So I hopefully made it up to them, made amends for that. But so it's a scary thing, but I had passion for it. And I think that's one of the keys to being successful in business or anything really that you believe in. And so I was passionate about it. I was excited about it. I was working all day, all night. And I said, you know what, when I quit, I said, I think I figured at the time we'd have, if the business failed or something, whatever, that I'd have about a year. If we really scrimped, I could have a year, we could live maybe a year off of our savings. But because my wife didn't have a job. She was a stay-at-home mom, and my son was 9 months old. And I can remember telling, that's a funny thing too. I remember you talking about making the decision. I can still to this day, and my wife remembers too. I was laying in bed one night, like twiddling my thumbs. I got to tell her. And then I go, hey, I'm going to quit my job. She goes, she's very supportive. And she goes, well, okay. I said, what are we going to do for insurance though? This is back when insurance was cheap. And I said, we'll get insurance. It's not we'll figure it out. But she was very supportive. But I remember being really scared to tell her that I was going to do it. But she was supportive. She didn't, a lot of people, I think that's important to have supportive people around you. But I had my grandparents gave me an intervention because they grew up in the Depression. So they were like tried to intervention me at a restaurant. Why are you leaving? You got this great job with a Fortune 500 company, you may get a company car, benefits. And I knew Black & Decker was a great company, but I was working my butt off and moving up. But I knew that, ultimately, regardless of how much I work, the majority of the money or the results of that are going to Mr. Black and Mr. Decker and not to me. And if I'm going to work that hard, and I also started to see the corporate, liking people that you don't have to, acting like you like people that you really don't, to get up, to move up. And I didn't like that, the corporate structure of a big company. So yeah, that's, that's how I got in. That's how I got in, and that's how I made the decision, I guess. Just a leap. You have to take that leap of faith.
Do you think there's anything they could have done to keep you there?
No, I don't think so. Nope. I don't think so. I was so excited with the success we had early on. I didn't know if it would, continue, but I trusted that that it would, because we had competitors that started to come in within the first year. We had copycats, of course, but then we were in the process of building our second version of the site that actually had a database and actually had, it wasn't Outlook, it was a lot more expensive to build, but it was, we had a database and we had a credit card processor. So we built the second version of the site and it launched about a year and a half later. But it was challenge. It was a tough decision. Well, actually, to me, it wasn't a tough decision because I'm a salesman. I said, you know what, I can always just go sell cars if I fail. So,
hiring can be difficult, I think, sometimes for a salesperson or someone else in another profession, and then you're bringing people on your team, and you went the route of bringing on family. When was the point of time when you actually had to advertise and bring on someone maybe you didn't know? Was there a point that started?
Like I said, I think a majority of the time, and it's probably true, that hiring friends and family is not a good move, and it's obvious why I think, because you don't want that coming between your relationships with those people, and they could end up tearing the relationships apart in a work environment. But for me, it just was a natural thing, and I had an amazing family, and so I did my first, like I said, 3 or 4 hires were family. And then actually it was, I hired my college roommate to be COO. And then it was networking with people that either I knew or people that they knew. Cause I never really liked to hire anybody that I didn't know or somebody else. So it's kind of like the whole referral thing, like that I didn't know or somebody knew, because I was always, they're like a member of the family. And we had an incredible, I had one person quit the company right before I sold, and that's it. No one ever quit. And we had to let one person go, but very high retention. I paid our people well. They were like family. And so that's really how we did it. And the nice thing about with blinds, we don't manufacture the blinds, and neither does Home Depot, neither does anybody selling custom blinds. They actually don't make the product. There's fabricators, manufacturers, several around the country, some big, some small, and they actually make them for the retailer and then ship them direct. So it's a drop ship business. But we curate the line. So it's our product. They put, our labels on it. So, but we actually, in this industry, because it's made to order, none of us are manufacturers. So our level of our payroll as a percent of revenue is 6%. So it's tiny. It's tiny because our marketing expense is more than double that, because that's the big expense is competing against. And that kind of leads when we talk about my new business about why it was such a struggle, because how expensive pay-per-click has become, and advertising period, and building a brand is very expensive, is extremely expensive. But yeah, so we didn't, I think when I sold my first, we had about 20 employees is all, but if we manufacture it, we probably would have had to have about 500. So employees, if we actually made the product, but we didn't.
Have you ever thought about, even with your new company or maybe the old company, about manufacturing in-house?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought when that eventually somebody would kind of become the Dell or the direct retailer of that. And you think, okay, if Amazon got into the business, or a big company, would they get in? This industry is very unique, and it's the most vertically integrated industry you could ever know. And there's one company that owns everybody. From top to bottom, with the exception of Home Depot owning our largest competitor, they own everybody else. They don't own us yet, but there's definitely the opportunity for that. I know that there is, but they own every, from the tassels to the strings to the all different components to the wholesalers to the retailers. So that you couldn't really, if you're selling a product, you're buying a Hunter Douglas, and Hunter Douglas is a fabricator. You're buying, you're going to be competing against them, and they're huge. They're a $5 billion a year company. And so there are small fabricators around the country, but you couldn't compete with them. They own every part of the business from top to bottom. So not to say you couldn't, but you'd have to go to China to source the products yourselves. And Hunter Douglas owns all the fabricators in China. So, it's just a very interesting industry that but not to say that it still couldn't happen one day. It'd just be very difficult. It's not something I'm looking at doing anytime soon for sure, knowing what I know about the industry. But that's good because it creates a barrier to entry. You can't just go, throw both from a cost of building a brand and then also just for somebody to just start selling blinds out of their house and making them. That's not a realistic, thing for somebody to do that.
So being that the product is similar, I guess most people are getting from the similar manufacturer. How do you find a way to differentiate yourself from your competitors?
That's a very good question, and that's what I think is the key to marketing. And I wouldn't have started the first business. I was the first company, really the first website out there to be able to, check out and add, do your sizes, have it calculate your size, add it to a cart and check out. But we were also the first one to offer a satisfaction guarantee. And I know that sounds, well, why is that such a big deal? Well, it's a custom made product. So if you don't like it, then we can't resell it. So we take a total loss on it. And so everybody in the industry, if you were in the industry, I think that's the benefit of me not being from the industry. I just said, you know what, I've got to offer a satisfaction guarantee. If they like it, then if they don't like it, and I'm just trusting that a majority of people are honest and that just want to come and get blinds. And sure, just like any retail business, like a Home Depot, they figure, okay, 2% of the people that go in there are looking to steal or maybe higher, and so that's just a cost of doing business. Well, that's the way I looked at a satisfaction guarantee is that I thought it'd be a very small percent of people and that we could absorb that cost. And we did. And so we were the first ones to do that, and free samples. No one was doing free samples. People were charging for them, and we did them. We do them, and we've always done them for free. And now all of our competitors copied that. And when I launched the second business, I would never have gotten in if I didn't have something that set me apart. I'm like, I'm not going to go back and do what I did before because there's a lot of people already doing it. How could I make Blindster different than what I did before and different than everybody out there? And how I did it was I added what's called a fit or free guarantee, because I know the percent of people that, okay, some people out there may be scared that they think it's for professionals, but it's not. It's one of the easiest do-it-yourself things you could do. And to convince people that they could do it, if you mismeasure, it's currently a policy today. If you measure yourself and you make a mistake and it doesn't fit for any reason, even if you just read the tape measure wrong, you reverse the measurements, we'll remake it in the new size for no charge. We just charge for shipping. And we don't even have you return the blind. We have you request that you donate it to charity. And so we just, we take a loss on that. But again, that's one of the things that we hope that will get the customer to come back in the future because of what we were able to do for them. And I always say that we don't have to make money on every sale. I just want to have more money in the bank at the end of the month than I had in the beginning of the month. So, that's the big picture look versus micro looking at every single order saying, oh, we didn't make money on this one. Why didn't we make money on that? I don't look at it like that. So
makes sense. I mean, if you were looking back at your younger self that was starting that company back in the day, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Be persistent and never, if you've got something that I always say, my two things are passion and persistence. So be passionate about what you, and about what you're doing and be persistent and don't quit. Don't ever quit. I I sold my house in the second business. I sold my house. I cashed in my 401ks. I did everything I could do to keep this business running. Because we ran through, it was very different, landscape the second time around, but just believe in yourself and believe in what you do. And, if you fail, I had some failures for sure on the front end. I mean, at face value look like failures, but looking back, I'm glad they happened. They ended up just being lessons, right? And I knew, okay, don't own a restaurant and don't, or whatever it was. Or, I did buy a competitor, a small competitor with my Blindster, and that ended up being a failure. But I learned, don't need to buy competitors. And they sold brand name products, which we don't sell. I realized real early on, I'm not going to sell brands because I'm going to sell my own brand, because a brand like, a Levalor, or Hunter Douglas brand, they get footballed around, so you can just comparison shop, right? Oh, well, it's here, it's there. Whereas if you have your own brand, and you see more and more companies, stores doing that, right? Grocery stores coming out with because they're more profitable, and you can't price shop. You don't price shop. People aren't able to price shop as easily. So, yeah.
Okay, so going back to that failure then, right? And what you learned from it, you're happy that it happened. What do you think one of the best nuggets you got from one of your failures has been?
Well, I've had quite a few, but I look back, like I said, on every one of them as they weren't failures. They were just lessons, that I learned, because you learn from that. And one, I'm trying to think, I probably have a bigger, well, I mean, the one that I can think of off the top of my head, well, there's two. Selling my business so early, I learned that that selling a business for 3 times a multiple of earnings is probably not good when you're growing at 80% a year. So that was a lesson, and how to value your business, and how to value, and not. So that was an early lesson. But then I bought a competitor thinking I was going to fill a need, that the brand need that we weren't, even though I was totally against, selling brands. I was like, well, there are a certain amount of people that want a brand, so let me add this. I'm going to acquire a competitor, and that was retiring. So I bought their website, and we were different domain name, and they had been around about 10 or 15 years. So about 10 years now, about 15 years. And I learned from that is that stick with what and your gut. It's a scientific fact I've read before, that your gut feeling is actually a biological thing. It's not just there's actually, and I've got a big gut, and I tend to go with my gut, and I should have, because I felt like that there was no reason to carry brands, but I doubted myself and said, well, I learned, by failing at that, because we've since taken the website for the most part down. It's still there, but we don't advertise it. We don't do any volume on it. So it really, we need to take it down completely. But yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of money on that, but I learned that I didn't need to be in that business, and I didn't need to be in the brand business. And I should have trusted my gut feeling, or what I felt like I knew. And so that's what I learned.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, everyone, if you're looking for some blinds, go to Blindster. And another nugget, if you have a gut or don't have a gut, follow it. Even if you abs and you're good to go, not me, I got a gut too. But if you have abs, you still got a gut there, and follow that and enjoy that. Thank you, Kyle, for being on the podcast. Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you.
And thank you. Truthful. I mean, I think a lot of people come on here, and with all your success, I mean, you're still very humble with the idea that you've gone through hurdles.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's never going to be easy. Nothing is easy. Again, it's no risk without, or no reward without risk. So, and it's not easy, but I think if you stick with it, and you're passionate, again, and you're persistent, then you can be successful. And there's nothing more rewarding than that. Whether you make a lot of money, or you're just, whatever is a lot of money to you, to each person, but it's very rewarding to have your own thing, and be successful at it. So, yeah.
Thank you again. Everyone listening, please subscribe, please share. And if you're getting blinds, go to Blindster. Thanks, everyone.